Today I'd like for us to talk about something that might seem a little strange for us to even think about. 20th century, 21st century people. I'd like for us to think about something called nature worship. And when we think of nature worship, we primarily might think of people worshiping things in the ancient world, people that worship the sun and the moon and various kinds of animals and various birds and stuff, and people worship the wind. And there were people in the ancient world that did that. They worshiped the sun and the moon and the stars. They worshiped the wind. They worshiped various animals. They worshiped certain kinds of birds. And that's usually what we think of when we think of nature worship. We think of it happening 3,000 or 4,000 years ago back in the ancient world. And it might be odd to even think about it, except just for a historical oddity. But actually nature worship is alive and well and is actually taking over in our society today. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. The fundamental idea behind nature worship is that nature and natural forces are sufficient to explain everything. And that's the real idea behind nature worship. That's what people 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago that were worshiping things in nature really thought. That the gods, so to speak, are just natural objects. That the natural forces of the world are sufficient to explain everything. So that's what I'd like to think about today. That's nature worship. And it's not just bowing down to the sun or sacrificing to the moon or something. So I want to think about it in a circuitous route. Now, because of this coronavirus thing, the past 6 months or so, doing things online has been promoted as a substitute for doing them in person. Instead of going to church, just watch it on your phone. Instead of going over here to the Arts Council or the library or something to see an art exhibit, just look at pictures of it on your phone. Instead of getting together in person for a meeting, just do it on Zoom. Instead of going to school, just watch a video of a teacher. Now, to begin with, all that online stuff was sort of a novelty. And it seemed like it might be an acceptable substitute. But the novelty soon wore off. People found that watching a video on a phone is not the same as going to church. Looking at little pictures on your phone ain't the same as going to an art gallery. And I don't know if y'all have been involved in Zoom meetings, but one that I have, and I can tell you they're cumbersome and they're absolutely worthless. And I can also tell you that apparently watching videos of teachers is a poor substitute for being in a classroom. Something is missing from all that stuff, but what is it? And when I was thinking about that, when all this mess first started and it became illegal for us to have church, I decided to try to make the video as much like being here as I actually could. And if you'll remember, we went through several iterations of doing different things. I was trying to make a video that would be like being here. And I finally gave up because I could not do that. There was no way to make a video that would be like being here. And so I sat and I thought, what's missing? And then I remembered something years and years ago. My mother took me on a trip to New York City years and years ago. And I remember the first time I ever stood on the sidewalk in New York City. I was not unfamiliar with New York City. Everybody's seen a million pictures of it. You've seen a million TV programs, a million movies in your life that were filmed in New York City. Everybody's familiar with it. But I will never forget the feeling of standing on that sidewalk in New York City for the first time. It was so different from seeing it on TV, or it's so different from seeing it on a movie. And the reason was that when I was just seeing it in a picture or in a movie, I was just seeing it. But when I was standing there on the sidewalk, I was experiencing it. I was a part of it. I was in it. And that's why people found that watching videos is a poor substitute for doing something in person. You see it, but you do not experience it. It's one thing to sit and watch a video of a church service on your phone. It's another thing to actually be there. It's one thing to have a meeting that consists of looking at little thumbnail-sized pictures of a person on your phone. It's another to have a meeting when you're sitting in a room around a table and all talking. It's one thing to watch a video of a teacher. It's completely different to be in the classroom with the teacher. You see the differences between just seeing it and experiencing it. You're sitting in this room, but you're not just seeing this room. You are experiencing being here. You have the feeling that you are a part of it. You have the feeling that you are in it. And that feeling of experiencing something, that feeling of being in something, is called consciousness. Now, consciousness is hard to define. We can only define the result of it. But consciousness is the difference between just seeing New York City on your TV screen and standing there on the sidewalk in the middle of it. That's consciousness, the act of experiencing it, the act of being a part of it. And science cannot explain consciousness. Science can explain partially how your sense of sight works, how you see something. They can explain partially how you hear something, but they cannot explain the feeling of experiencing something. And that is called the mystery of consciousness. They've got a lot of theories about it, but they're just theories. They really have no idea how consciousness works, how the experiencing of something actually works. Oddly enough, though, even though scientists have no idea how consciousness works, they tell us that consciousness arises totally from our brain. It's the result of neurons and chemical reactions and electrical impulses. They cannot pinpoint exactly what those processes are, though. They cannot explain how chemical reactions and electrical impulses get translated over into a feeling of experience. They have no idea how that works and how that happens. But even though they have no idea about it, they tell us it is completely a part of the brain. And here you may stop and think, well, they don't know what it is and how it works. How do they know it's completely confined to the brain? Well, they don't. They have no idea where it is or what it is. They say it's confined to the brain because of the fundamental assumption that all of modern science is based on. And that is the assumption that everything can be explained by the natural world and natural processes. That is the bedrock assumption of modern science, on which it's all based, that everything that exists can be explained purely by natural processes. They take that position because they believe there is nothing but nature and natural causes. They believe there is no spiritual realm. And therefore, if there is nothing but natural causes, then everything must be explained by it. And that's why, although they have no idea what consciousness actually is or how consciousness actually works, they insist that it's totally confined to the brain. But think for a minute. What is the idea that everything can be explained by nature and natural forces? It is the basic definition of nature worship. Ancient people worshiped the sun and the moon and birds and whatever else they worship because they believed that everything can be explained by things in nature. Modern science is based on the exact same idea. You see, nature worship is not just going out and building an altar and sacrificing a cow to the moon. Worship really means where you put your ultimate trust, your ultimate faith. Science puts its ultimate trust. It sees nature as the ultimate. And that is the very definition of nature worship. Now, many people back in biblical times also believed that natural forces are sufficient to explain everything. From Deuteronomy chapter 4, we hear, Beware lest you raise your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon, and the stars, you be drawn away and bow down to them and serve them. This says not to worship the sun, moon, and stars. If we read on into the book of Deuteronomy, we see this. If there is found among you any of your people, a man or woman, who has been wicked in the sight of the Lord your God in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other gods and worshipped them, either the sun, the moon, or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded, and it is told you and you hear of it, then you shall inquire diligently. If it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination has been committed in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has committed that wicked thing, and shall stone to death that man or woman with stone. And so they saw it in the most severe terms. Nature worship was punishable by death. But of course the people did it anyway. In the book of 2 Kings, we hear how King Josiah removed the horses that the kings of Judah had dedicated to the sun at the entrance to the temple by the chamber of Nathan-Melech, the officer who was in the court, and he burned the chariots of the sun with fire. They had been worshiping the sun right there on the porch of the temple. From Ezekiel chapter 8, we see this same thing. Have you seen this, O son of man? Turn again, and you will see greater abominations than these. So he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and there at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were 25 men with their backs toward the temple and their faces toward the east, and they were worshiping the sun. So there they were on the porch of the temple, worshiping the sun. Jeremiah chapter 8 says, at that time, says the Lord, they shall bring out the bones of the kings of Judah, the bones of its princes, and the bones of the priests, the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem out of the graves. They shall spread them before the sun and the moon and all the host of heaven, which they have loved and which they have served, and after which they have walked, which they have sought and they have worshipped. They shall not be gathered nor buried. They shall be like refuse on the face of the earth. And here, that's what this is talking about, is that the very bodies of the people who worship natural objects will be disgraced. Their corpses will be laid out. And that was considered one of the biggest disgraces in that part of the world at that time, that you did not receive a burial, but your corpse was just laid out where it rotted and became food for wild animals. And so from numerous places in the Old Testament, we see this idea how nature worship is condemned in the most severe terms. The idea that natural forces are sufficient to explain everything is rejected. In the New Testament, we heard earlier of reading from Romans chapter 1. Here's a part of it again. God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made. And it goes on to say, they are without excuse. They did not glorify God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. They changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like corruptible man. Nature, you see, manifests the glory of God. Nature shows the glory of God. As the psalm said, the heavens declare the glory of God, but they are not the glory of God. And nature is not the only force out there. Above, beyond, and behind nature is the power of God. And here is where Christianity and science part company. The foundational assumption of modern science is that everything can be explained purely by natural forces and that there is no spiritual. That is the foundation upon which all of modern science is based. But Christianity says that behind nature is God. Christianity says that behind nature is the spiritual. Christianity says there is more than just nature and natural forces, there is the spiritual. And Christianity tells us that your consciousness is that spiritual part of you, your soul. That's why it's different watching something than being in it. When you're watching something, all your body is doing is processing it, but when you're in it, your soul is experiencing it. And according to Christianity, it is your spirit, your soul, that spiritual part of you that is responsible for those feelings of experience. The spiritual part of you is the seat of your consciousness. Here is the unbridgeable gulf between Christianity and science, and it is unbridgeable. Science insists there is no spiritual, there is nothing but nature and natural forces. Christianity says none. None. Behind all of that is the spiritual. Those two positions cannot be combined and they cannot be reconciled. They are mutually exclusive. You can adhere to one or the other, but you cannot adhere to them both. They are mutually exclusive. What you worship is what you look to as the ultimate. Science looks to nature as the ultimate. Christianity looks to God, to the spiritual, as the ultimate. Now, in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, people are warned time and time again not to turn to other religions that were popular in the world at that time. Today, we don't have to worry about that. There's not a significant number of Christians leaving Christianity and becoming Buddhist or Hindu or Muslim. Now, there's always a few. But there's not a significant number of Christians leaving Christianity going to other religions like that. But there are a significant number of people today leaving Christianity for the nature religion of science. Science is, in fact, the new religion of our age. Science, more than anything else, is leading people away from Christianity. In surveys asking people who have left Christianity why they left Christianity, the number one reason given is because they no longer believe it. And when asked why they no longer believe it, the number one reason given is because it is not compatible with science. It is not secularization or anything like that that's leading people away from Christianity. It's science. I remember a TV commercial a few months ago when the coronavirus thing first got going. I don't remember what the commercial was for, but I do remember the opening statement. In times like these, we turn to the one sure thing there is, science. And Wanda and I were sitting on the couch and I said, that makes chills run down my spine. In times like these, we turn to the one sure thing there is, science. My God. And then I thought, well, why should I be surprised? It's the motto of our times. And it is that very attitude that is leading people away from Christianity in droves. We live in a world today where those who are interested in religion and seek a relationship with God are said to have some kind of psychological disorder. God is needed by only by those people who have dark lives, who have some kind of need in their lives, who are seeking a way to cope. Scientists tell us that God is a coping mechanism that we invent in our own minds. They tell us that people who are interested in religion have deep-seated psychological needs and deep-seated psychological disorders. And you know what? The number of Christians in America declines every year. The number of Americans who are willing to identify themselves as Christians declines every year. There are many churches in dire straits now because of the coronavirus thing. Other churches have been affected much more than this. I know churches that used to average 150 or more on Sunday morning that are now having 15 to 20 there on Sunday morning. Some churches haven't even had services in over 6 months. A lot of churches will not recover from this. They will not. And you know, the thing that really irks me the most about it is there are a lot of people in this society that are happy over it. And there's a lot of people in this society who do not think it's a big deal. I don't look at Facebook as much anymore. One of the reasons I don't is because I got sick of these people on Facebook gloating over the fact that churches were closed. You know, for those of us who are not happy about the situation today, and for those of us who do see the situation as a big deal, it is cause for concern. I have spent a lot of time over the past few months worrying about the future of Christianity in America. And at this time, it doesn't look good. Who's going to be the next generation of Christians in the United States of America? I don't know. I don't really blame it all on the coronavirus thing. That just, I think, accelerated the process of putting the nails in the coffin. The real problem is that people have rejected God, and they have turned instead to science. That's the problem. Now, I'm not anti-science or anything like that, and I know science has brought us good things. It has turned us away from God. That's what it's done. If that is to change, we've got to somehow go back and recover the idea that there is more to things than just nature and natural forces. We've got to somehow go back and recover the idea, not only among ourselves, but among our children and our grandchildren, that there is more to reality than scientific fact. There is more to reality than scientific fact. We've got to come back to the idea that scientific facts do not have the last word. That's the only way. You know, Christians have tried for the past 150 years or so to straddle Christianity and science. One foot in Christianity and one foot in science. We see today where that got us. Straddling the fence did not work. Straddling the fence never works. You know, eventually both of your feet are going to be planted in the same place. That's eventually what's going to happen. May God grant each one of us the grace to plant both of our feet in Christianity.